Peter Abraham's Mine Boy, 1946, is one of the earliest African novels written in English to gain international attention. Set in apartheid-era South Africa, the novel explores the brutal conditions of black mineworkers and the systemic racism embedded in urban and industrial life. Through the story of a young man named Zuma, Mine Boy presents a scathing critique of racial segregation, economic exploitation, and social alienation, while also portraying the awakening of political consciousness. As a social realist novel, Mine Boy blends vivid storytelling with political advocacy. It highlights the everyday struggles of the working class under apartheid and offers a vision of solidarity and resistance in the face of institutionalized injustice. Arrival in Johannesburg. The novel opens with Zuma, a young black man from the rural north, arriving in Johannesburg in search of work and a better life. He is directed to Malay Camp, a squalid area populated by African and colored workers. There, he meets Leah, a strong, motherly woman who runs an illegal beer-selling business and offers Zuma a place to stay. Her home becomes a focal point for various characters navigating urban poverty and racial inequality. Zuma's new life and relationships. Zuma is determined to find work and uphold his dignity. He eventually gets a job in the gold mines, where he experiences the dehumanizing conditions imposed on black laborers. As he learns the ropes of mining, he also grapples with Johannesburg's strict racial hierarchy, enforced through housing laws, job restrictions, and social segregation. Zuma becomes romantically involved with Eliza, Leah's niece, who is educated and aspires to emulate white culture. Their relationship is fraught with tension, as Eliza is ashamed of her African identity and desires a life of privilege, free from the burdens of race. Zuma, on the other hand, is proud of his roots and increasingly critical of the system that devalues him. He also befriends Paddy, a white Irish miner who treats him with respect. Paddy becomes a mentor and later a symbol of interracial solidarity. Another important character is Johannes, a fellow black miner who is injured in an accident, reinforcing the novel's central concern with the expendability of black lives in the mining industry. Awakening and tragedy. As Zuma becomes more aware of the injustices around him, he undergoes a transformation. He begins to reject the passivity of his earlier life and grows into a figure of resistance. He observes how the white supervisors devalue black workers, how poverty crushes dreams, and how alcohol and escapism are used to dull the pain of oppression. Eliza eventually leaves him, choosing to live among whites and rejecting her African heritage entirely. Her departure marks a turning point in Zuma's emotional and ideological development. He starts to align himself with the struggles of his fellow workers and joins efforts to improve working conditions in the mines. Tragedy strikes when a catastrophic accident occurs in the mine due to unsafe practices that prioritize profit over safety. Many black workers are killed or injured. The event becomes a catalyst for collective anger and action. Zuma's political resolve. In the aftermath of the disaster, Zuma emerges as a voice of conscience. He begins to organize and speak out against the injustices perpetrated by the mining industry and the broader system of racial apartheid. Though the novel ends with uncertainty about the future, it offers a powerful vision of hope, solidarity, and resistance through the character of Zuma and the collective awakening of the working class. Character analysis. Zuma is the protagonist and a symbol of the everyman in apartheid South Africa. At the beginning of the novel, he is naive and primarily concerned with finding work and adapting to urban life. However, his journey is one of political and personal awakening. He transforms into a morally aware, socially conscious individual who begins to understand the systemic nature of oppression. Zuma's relationships, particularly with Eliza and Paddy, are instrumental in shaping his evolving consciousness. His pride, growing defiance, and eventual embrace of collective action make him a compelling and dynamic character. Eliza Eliza is a complex figure torn between two worlds. Educated and ambitious, she aspires to escape her African identity and emulate white norms. Her internalized racism and self-denial serve as a critique of colonial assimilation. Though she initially loves Zuma, her shame about her background and desire to pass ultimately drive her away. Eliza represents a tragic figure, one who loses her sense of belonging by attempting to exist in a society that will never fully accept her. Leah is the maternal anchor of the community. She provides shelter, moral guidance, and economic support through her illegal beer business. She symbolizes resilience and informal leadership in a community ravaged by structural violence. Paddy, the Irish miner, is one of the few white characters in the novel portrayed sympathetically. He sees Zuma as an equal and challenges the racism of other white supervisors. Paddy's role as an ally reflects Abraham's belief in cross-racial solidarity in the fight against oppression. Themes: 1. Racial injustice and apartheid. At the heart of Mindboy is an unflinching critique of South Africa's apartheid system. The novel portrays racial segregation in housing, employment, healthcare, and interpersonal relationships. Black South Africans are treated as expendable labor, with no legal protections or opportunities for advancement. Abrahams exposes the structural racism that permeates every aspect of society. The gold mines are a symbol of exploitation, where black workers risk their lives for the wealth of white industrialists. The city's spatial geography reinforces exclusion. Black people are confined to slums and subjected to curfews and raids. 2. Class and labor exploitation. Class is closely linked with race in the novel. Black workers are trapped in low-paying, dangerous jobs with no bargaining power. Their labor fuels the economy, yet they remain poor, sick, and voiceless. The novel dramatizes how capitalism and racism work together to maintain inequality. The mine becomes a microcosm of the broader economic system. Profit is prioritized over people, and human life is expendable. The lack of safety measures, poor wages, and lack of medical care illustrate the dehumanization of workers. 3. Urbanization and alienation. Zuma's migration from the rural countryside to Johannesburg mirrors the experiences of many Africans during the early 20th century. The city, though promising opportunity, instead delivers alienation, exploitation, and moral ambiguity. Characters like Eliza lose their cultural moorings, while others like Johannes turn to alcohol to cope with despair. Urban life is depicted as a disorienting space where traditional values are undermined, and people are reduced to commodities. 4. Identity and internalized racism. Eliza's character embodies the destructive effects of internalized racism. Her desire to become white reflects the psychological impact of colonialism, where African identity is associated with shame, backwardness, and inferiority. Zuma's struggle with her rejection of blackness is both personal and symbolic. The novel explores the tension between assimilation and authenticity, showing how oppressive systems warp individual identities and relationships. 5. Solidarity and resistance. As the novel progresses, Zuma begins to understand that true change cannot come through individual effort alone. It must be collective. His development into a worker leader and his alliances with others in the mining community represent a turn toward organized resistance. Though the novel does not end with a full-fledged revolution, it offers a vision of growing consciousness and unity among the oppressed. Abrahams uses this theme to suggest that change is possible through solidarity and courage. Narrative style and structure. Peter Abrahams uses a realist style, with clear, accessible prose. The narrative voice is omniscient, allowing insight into various characters' internal states. The structure follows Zuma's personal development, from a passive migrant to an empowered agent of resistance, mirroring the typical arc of a Bildungsroman. The dialogue is naturalistic and reflects the multilingual, multicultural nature of Johannesburg's working-class communities. Abrahams also uses sensory details and stark imagery to evoke the physical and emotional toll of apartheid. Historical and literary context. Mine Boy was published in 1946, just 2 years before apartheid became official state policy in South Africa, 1948. It was one of the first novels to address the condition of black urban workers and to portray black protagonists with psychological depth and moral complexity. Peter Abrahams, a South African of Ethiopian and mixed-race descent, was deeply involved in anti-colonial activism. His novel predates the wave of post-independence African literature that would flourish in the 1950s and 60s. Yet, it anticipates many of the themes that would define African writing: identity, resistance, decolonization, and the human cost of imperialism. Mine Boy also stands as a precursor to South African protest literature, paving the way for later authors such as Alex Laguma, Nadine Gordimer, and J. M. Coetzee. Conclusion. Peter Abrahams' Mine Boy is a landmark novel in African literature, offering a powerful depiction of life under apartheid. Through Zuma's journey, the novel captures the devastating effects of systemic racism, labor exploitation, and urban alienation while affirming the possibility of resistance and human dignity. More than just a political statement, Mine Boy is a deeply human story about love, loss, awakening, and solidarity. Its call for justice and its celebration of courage in the face of overwhelming oppression remain profoundly relevant to readers today. By combining literary craft with moral vision, Abrahams created a novel that is both a historical document and a timeless plea for equality and human rights.